Basically, I got into carving otters a number of years ago, but I really got into it after I took the North Island College joinery program. And in that, I perfected some of my technical skills. And then, after hanging out with a number of native carvers here on Vancouver Island, I got into carving more and hand carving the otters. And then they started selling well. And then I started using more power equipment. And so I'm making a lot of otters now, and I got them in a number of stores around the province, and I'm kind of happy about that. I was overseas 10 years ago, and I made some decent money, so I started a small fund called the Aboriginal Elders and Youth Tribal Governance Fund, actually. And it's with the Victoria Foundation, so all of the money that I make on these otters goes into that Elders and Youth Tribal Governance Fund, which pays for a few things for people, help them out with their education and keeping the culture alive and stuff like that. So that's where the money from the otters goes. I started working with Cecil Dawson about 6 months ago. We were both kind of locked down because of the COVID thing, and we live on the same block in Port Alberni. And we've been working together at the big totem pole that Tim Paul was carving down in Port Alberni. And when that kind of closed down, Cecil suggested we collaborate with our art, my carving, his First Nations art on some of the otters, and they're turning out rather well. And we've got them in a show right now at Port Alberni. And we're talking about doing other towns and other art shows with a collaboration, like, as he says, reconciliation on parade kind of stuff. So we're doing that. Hi, we're talking to Cecil Dawson, Vancouver Island artist, today about his actions during the COVID pandemic and how that's affecting his art. So how is it affecting your art?
Oh, like everybody else, the pandemic has slowed me down, and I got to explore some artistic avenues that I put on a shelf. And since I can't bake sourdough bread, I just continued exploring unexplored territory and new mediums and new ideas.
What are some of those examples of new mediums that you're looking at?
One of the examples is was the action of reconciliation, and and then and then all these other issues surfaced: Black Lives Matter, systemic racism in Canada, and all that. And those were some of the topics that were an unknown fear and a whisper, and then all of a sudden it became public. And those are some of the areas and different aspects. But before I even explored some of my personal experiences in this, I first valued my friendships with other artists that I had come to know, and we're actually not talking the talk, but actually walking the walk of the whole reconciliation and moving forward, and that's how one of the tools in the toolbox was just to work with other people, and they happened to be all non-native, but that was a natural extension of that, and that was one of the areas where I just chose to share about my experiences about the systemic racism and the murdered and missing women, stuff like that, and shared it with my friends, and we all, without even blinking an eye, we decided on our own to use some of this subject matter in our collaboration, and it just kind of happened, and that's why the show was named Together. But I got to share a little bit about myself and be vulnerable. And my friends responded by doing what they do artistically.
Thank you. What are some of the ideas of collaboration that you're working with? Who are the other artists that you're working with in paint and woodwork and that kind of thing?
I work with craftsmen. I first started working with Alan Halverson. He did surfboards and wooden surfboards out of cedar, hollow, and paddles. And I met him a few years ago. And because we're both woodworkers, I just thought, we just thought, because he used to collect my work before I met him. He never met me, but he said, "Here, Cecil, I've been buying your work for 2, 3 years." So he wanted a painting on one of his paddles, and that's how that started. And we started to form a partnership of his beautiful paddles and my artwork. And then I've been doing. I went to art school, so my mediums are kind of wide and varied. And I met a friend of mine for years, Lori, and she's primarily, when she started off, a portrait painter of faces, and she grew as an artist into some abstract, really cool things, and then she was very interested in the stories of the troubles that my people went through, and we started to paint those things, and I collaborated with her with a little bit of native art. And then there was Jen, who was starting up as an artist, and she had something there. She's been really working on herself, and her art was very. She used to do fairies and mushrooms and stuff like that, but I just seen something there, and I just wanted to debut her into the world and get confidence in her work, and she just blossomed. And then there's Nigel, and I developed a friendship with him working on a language pole down at the waterfront, and it's been a wonderful collaboration because he's such a craftsman himself, and I get to paint his work. So that's kind of where that is.
Thank you.
The future of collaboration and what we're doing here at the Rolling Art Center, I just talked to the curator of the Rolling Art Center, and she said that the feedback and the show is magnificent and powerful. It might be heightened because of COVID, I don't know, but artists have always been the first responders to the plight of the human condition. We've always been on there on the front lines and said, this is what's going on. This is what we have to change. This is what we have to address. And the future of collaboration with not just native artists, but the artists in Canada and artists, all kinds of artists, is, I think, a small step for healing in Canada. Thank you.
There.
Over the last 6 months or so, ever since we were working on the Indigenous language poll together, Cecil and I have been quietly collaborating on a few products. This one's made from the 800-year-old wood from the totem pole, and I carved the bowl, and Cecil said, "What would you like painted on it?" And I said, well, it kind of looks like a turtle shell, and seeing as Turtle Island is kind of upside down right now in terms of leadership, pandemic, and other issues that are in the news, I thought a turtle shell would be a good idea. So he painted this on the back of the bowl, and he said, "What would you like inside the bowl?" I said, "That's up to you." And so this is what he put on the inside.